Hey, Fem-son, can you come clean up the tampons you left on the floor? We have company.
Oh, great. What, do we got more white people in the house?
Oh, how you doing? Fem-son, have you met your cousin?
Men are men, women are women, red is red, a square is a square, facts are facts. Conservative cousin? First my dad is literally Hitler, and now this? I am surrounded by fascists!
Fem-son, I am not a fascist. I am just a regular guy who cares about being fiscally responsible.
Yeah, you should really stop throwing that word around so liberally. Like, I'm obviously just a regular conservative that cares about preserving tradition and white culture. Duh, bro. It's Fem-son! Respect my pronouns, fascist! Do you even know what that word means? Again, I am not a fascist. I just think that our ethnic purity is important for protecting our national identity.
Wait, are you sure you're just a regular conservative?
No, he's not! He's a fascist! He likes Trump and he doesn't respect pronouns! Pronouns are silly. They're an erosion of Western culture, propagated by the moral depravity the Enlightenment brought us. Oh, so now pronouns are just silly? Sounds like something a fascist would say.
I don't think that's the fascist part, Fem-son.
Now I remember this kind of degeneracy is the reason I don't come around here, getting screamed at by some blue-haired nut. How dare you criticize a femme-identifying person's hair? This is the most fascist thing I've ever heard in my life!
That's not what fascism means.
Oh, thanks for the advice, Mussolini.
Wait, you realize he's making actual fascist arguments, but you don't even notice because you don't seem to know what that word means.
Yeah, and I'm not a fascist. I just want the majority of the country to be white. Who cares? And here's the fascist rape culture. I didn't know this was a 1v2. I didn't consent to a gangbang. It's almost impossible nowadays to go on Twitter without seeing some kind of crazy liberal calling anything and anyone under the sun a fascist. Many times I think people throw this word around without having a concrete understanding of what fascism even is. It's a complicated subject, and although many who abuse the word fascist are simply idiots, some find confusion in defining what fascism is because historically, fascism has taken many forms. What does and does not constitute fascism is even highly contested among academic circles. In short, fascism is a form of radical authoritarian nationalism that came to prominence in early 20th century Europe, characterized by one-party totalitarian regimes run by charismatic dictators, glorification of violence, and racist ideology. Fascism has been seen all over the world, but it originated in Italy. In 1915, Mussolini's revolutionary action was held. A few years later, fascists began aligning themselves with normie conservatives, only leading to a growing fascist party. In the fall of 1922, Mussolini ordered black shirts to take control of post offices and train stations. Italy at the time was led by a left-wing coalition that was far too internally divided to respond to the fascist advancements. Mussolini ruled Italy from 1922 to 1943. Although Mussolini died in 1945, his dangerous ideas still live on today. Even now, in the year 2021, there are countless tenets of fascism to be observed, especially among the right-wing MAGA crowd here in the US. Fascistic talking points have historically filtered through more normie conservatives as well. In the early 20th century, to appeal to Italian conservatives, fascism adopted policies such as promoting family values, including policies designed to reduce the number of women in the workforce by limiting the woman's role to that of a mother. Prior to fascism's accommodation of the political right, fascism was a small urban northern Italian movement that had about 1,000 members. After fascism's accommodation of the political right, the fascist movement's membership soared to approximately 250,000 by 1921. Now, am I saying that all conservatives are fascists? No. Am I saying that if you're a conservative who prioritizes family values that you're actually a fascist? Still, No. I am saying that historically and presently, fascistic talking points have filtered into more mainstream conservatism, oftentimes by the means of useful idiots. Although the MAGA side of the right has more obvious fascistic tendencies, it's good to be aware of some of the common conservative talking points that are actually supporting tendencies of fascism. Umberto Eco was an Italian philosopher born in the 1930s under Mussolini's rule, and he later went on to formulate a list of common features of fascism. It's best to look at fascism like a disease. You need to look for symptoms, and just if you don't have every single symptom, it doesn't mean you aren't sick. The first common feature of fascism is the cult of tradition. One has only to look at the syllabus of every fascist movement to find the major traditionalist thinkers. The Nazi Gnosis was nourished by traditionalist occult elements. It's no surprise that we still see this from far-right idiots like Nick Fuentes today. This almost spiritual obsession with some mystical past where everything was perfect is a child's fantasy. Although not completely overt, some could argue that even Trump's slogan of Make America Great Again and the 1776 Project would appeal to this fascistic idea of an American past that was perfect and pure. A great question I have is, what tradition do we want to return to exactly? Usually it just means when black people were a currency, or when women had to stay in the kitchen.
You'll have a lot of conservative babes, and they'll say, I'm a feminist, but I'm like a real feminist, like the right to vote feminist, like the equality for women feminist. Yeah, shut up, idiot. We don't like you either. We don't need you either, you know? We want to go back to before that. No feminists.
Marjorie Taylor Greene even pushed for this idea of respecting Anglo-Saxon tradition. Not only is that completely irrational, it's the dog whistle that has deafened me. Anglo-Saxon has repeatedly been used by white supremacists to signal at white people. And this is just another example of how the far-right MAGA crowd repeats fascistic talking points. The first tenet of fascism plays directly into the second, the rejection of modernism. The Enlightenment, the Age of Reason, is seen as the beginning of modern depravity. In this sense, fascism can be defined as irrationalism. Fascism is by its nature irrational. This goes hand in hand because, of course, if you're embracing tradition, you're also rejecting modernism. To reject Enlightenment thought, like the ideas that individuals have inalienable rights and are capable of critical thinking and reasoning, is a dangerous path to go down. The cult of action for action's sake. Action being beautiful in itself, it must be taken before or without any previous reflection. Thinking is a form of emasculation. I've experienced this one firsthand. Debating the far right has definitely helped me see just how anti-intellectual they really are. They really do believe that it's cucky to think critically. Gender transition is what's beneficial for most trans people. So by you just saying, oh, well, they're crazy, I have a question for you. Do you think you know more than all of the medical consensus on this subject?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
That's all I needed to know.
do.
Fascism is the epitome of feelings over facts. This flared a lot with the MAGA response to scientific evidence that masks slow the spread of COVID and that hydroxychloroquine doesn't stop COVID. Anti-intellectualism is becoming more and more prominent among farther right circles, and this is a key tenet to fascism that works well together with the rejection of Enlightenment thinking. This also plays into the next one. Disagreement is treason. The critical spirit makes distinctions, and to distinguish is a sign of modernism. In modern culture, the scientific community praises disagreement as a way to improve knowledge. Fascists want a herd following, and historically they've even banned books that encourage and develop critical thinking skills. They reject distinctions and they have an aversion to nuance. This was demonstrated very clearly from the MAGA crowd throughout Trump's presidency and beyond. Trump fans would constantly call any form of opposition, even if it was from a fellow Republican, treasonous. That's because nuance was irrelevant, and to disagree or to question Donald Trump was a form of disrespecting the national identity. Fear of difference. The first appeal of a fascist or prematurely fascist movement is an appeal against the intruders. Thus, Fascism is racist by definition. Donald Trump's presidential bid was announced by inciting fear among the crowd about dangerous illegal immigrants, the dangerous intruders.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Studies have suggested that Trump won the presidency because of anti-immigrant and racist sentiments. Recognizing the importance of legal immigration is not what Trump did, and although he claimed he had no issue with immigrants coming in the right way, his administration repeatedly aimed to restrict those seeking asylum, which is a legal way to enter this country. On August 3rd, a white nationalist opened fire in a crowd of Walmart in El Paso as a response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas, he wrote in a manifesto prior to the shooting. In May, while unveiling his immigration plan, Trump claimed newcomers compete for jobs against the most vulnerable Americans and put pressure on our social safety net and generous welfare programs. This is a complete and total lie. Immigrants, legal and illegal, actually pay more into social safety nets than they take out. But again, it's not really about truth. It's about inciting fear of difference. The obsession with a plot. Thus, at the root of fascist psychology, there is an obsession with a plot, possibly an international one. The followers must feel besieged. This flares up everywhere, whether it's the evil globalists, the murky deep state trying to stop Trump, a cabal of Hollywood pedophiles, or Jews controlling the world to wipe out white people. Fascism, being by its nature irrational, plays right into conspiracy theories and whatever other degeneracy stems from rejecting Enlightenment thought. The portion about feeling besieged is really important also. Most of the time, the far right believes one or all of these plots are trying to besiege them by taking away our white culture. Historically, fascist regimes are often preoccupied with community decline, humiliation, or victimhood, and by compensatory cults of unity, energy, and purity, culminating in nationalistic and racist ideologies and practices. Finally, the enemy is both strong and weak. By a continuous shifting of rhetorical focus, the enemies are at the same time too strong and too weak. This is another very common fascist talking point that slips into mainstream conservative dialogue all the time. Just look at the way conservatives will talk about the left. One second they're a bunch of weak, wimpy, broke soy boys, and on the other hand, they're a highly organized political group controlling our media, censoring big tech, and brainwashing our children in schools. Look at how the right will oftentimes talk about Antifa. First, they're a bunch of losers triggered by opinions, and next they're a violent terrorist group burning down cities supported by the elites. Even Donald Trump went from calling Antifa a bunch of basement dwellers to trying to deem Antifa a terrorist organization.
A lot of them now are wealthy. You know, they're like these wealthy, spoiled kids that have no clue about life. They've got arms that are about this big, but they wear heavy jackets with lots. And you look, you say, oh, that guy looks tough. And then the jacket comes off, and you see these two little. Then they go home, and they live in a basement too. Their mom and dad's basement.
This shift in rhetorical focus is again intentionally incoherent. These are just a few of the fascistic tendencies I've witnessed from some on the right. Again, fascism is like a disease. Just if you don't have every symptom, it doesn't mean you aren't a fascist. But just having one or two symptoms doesn't always mean you're sick. One historian said that trying to define fascism is like trying to nail jelly to the wall. But I do hope that this video helped in painting a bit of a clearer picture of how fascism can rear its ugly head.